Are you crazy, old woman? Look what you did to my designer shoes. Vanessa Williams screamed as a few drops of dirty mop water hit the tip of her heels. She didn't care that it was an accident. She didn't care that the woman was old or frail. In a burst of rage, she kicked her. Right there, in the middle of the company lobby. What Vanessa didn't know was that the cleaner she just attacked was the billionaire CEO's mother. The marble floors of Sterling Holdings glistened like glass under the morning light. Every click of a stiletto heel echoed authority, and nobody clicked louder than Vanessa Williams, the feared HR manager of the firm's towering headquarters. Her presence was a show. Black-tailored pants, gold-rimmed glasses, blood-red lipstick, and a walk that screamed power. She wasn't just confident, she was arrogant. Vanessa had risen through the ranks quickly, but not through kindness or integrity. She believed in dominance, fear, and never letting anyone forget who the boss was. Interns trembled when she called their names. Even department heads avoided her path when possible. "Good morning, Ma," a junior staff member greeted as she passed. Vanessa barely nodded. Her focus was on her reflection in the lobby mirror. "Perfection," she whispered, smoothing her long weave and adjusting the collar of her blouse. Then she felt it. A cold splash, just a few droplets, hit the tip of her designer heels. She looked down. A faint smear of dirty mop water trailed across the glossy leather. Her jaw tightened. "What nonsense is this?" she snapped, eyes flaring as they darted toward the source. An old woman, bent, wrinkled, and frail, was crouched nearby with a mop in hand and a rusted bucket beside her. Her uniform was faded and sagged from too many washes. Her hands trembled as she struggled to wring out the mop over the bucket. Vanessa stormed toward her, her heels clacking like gunshots across the marble floor. "Are you blind?" she barked. "You just splashed filth on my shoes." The cleaner looked up, startled. "I'm so sorry, madam, I didn't mean—" Before she could finish, Vanessa kicked the bucket aside, water splashing across the floor. Then, in a moment of rage, she shoved the woman backward with her foot. The old cleaner fell hard, letting out a soft cry as her hip hit the floor. Gasps filled the lobby. "Useless woman! You nearly ruined my shoes! Do you know who I am?" The old woman said nothing. Her eyes, tired but deep with something unreadable, met Vanessa's briefly. And then she bowed her head. Security guards froze. Receptionists looked down. Nobody dared interfere. Vanessa stormed into the elevator and jabbed the top floor button. As the doors closed, she muttered, "Trash like that shouldn't even breathe the same air as me." But what Vanessa didn't know, what none of them knew, was that the woman she had just kicked wasn't just a cleaner. She was Martha Johnson, mother of Alexander Johnson, CEO, billionaire, owner of Sterling Holdings. And this morning she wasn't here by accident. She was sent with purpose. Martha Johnson sat silently in the janitor's break room, her frail frame resting on a wooden bench, her hands still shaking slightly from the fall. A younger cleaner offered her a warm cup of tea and a small first aid kit. "Are you all right, Mama?" the woman asked, gently dabbing Martha's bruised elbow. Martha offered a weak smile. "I've had worse, my dear, but thank you." Outside that cramped room, whispers were already spreading like wildfire. "Did you see what that Vanessa did? She kicked her like a dog. God will judge." But inside the break room, Martha was calm. Too calm. She reached slowly for her old leather purse and pulled out a small phone. She pressed just one number. It rang once. "Yes, Mama?" came the voice on the other end. Rich, clear, calm. "I've seen enough," Martha said. "You need to come down here, now." Silence followed for a beat. "I'll be there in 5 minutes," the voice replied. The call ended. Martha placed the phone back in her bag and sighed. This wasn't how she wanted to be treated, of course. But she hadn't come in search of pity or special attention. She had come to see with her own eyes what her son's company had become. And now she had her answer. Just then the door creaked open, and in walked one of the front desk secretaries, Jane. She looked shaken. "Mama, I didn't know. If I had known who you were..." Martha raised a hand gently to silence her. "That's the point, my child. You're not meant to treat me well because of who I am. You're meant to treat me well because of who you are." Jane's lips parted, but no words came out. She lowered her head in shame. Martha patted the bench beside her. Come, sit. Tell me, how long have you worked here?" Jane hesitated, then obeyed. 3 years, Ma. "And how does it feel, working under someone like Vanessa?" Jane looked around nervously, then whispered, "It's like walking on broken glass, Ma. She's smart, no doubt, but cruel, cold. She once deducted my salary because I was 5 minutes late during a flood." Martha nodded, unsurprised. Outside, the elevator dinged. In walked a tall man in a dark blue suit, flanked by 2 aides. His face was unreadable. His steps were purposeful. It was Alexander Johnson, the billionaire, the boss, the son. And everything was about to change. Vanessa sat in her glass-walled office on the 12th floor, sipping her imported vanilla latte, eyes glued to her screen, as she typed a sharply worded memo to the accounts department. A junior staff had failed to update the staff audit spreadsheet, and she was ready to make an example out of them. She loved moments like this, where her authority could be felt through cold, well-punctuated reprimands. She smiled slightly. Her perfectly polished nails clacked against the keyboard. Then her intercom buzzed. "Yes?" She answered, irritated by the interruption. The receptionist's voice came through, breathless. "Ma, Mr. Alexander. He's here, in the building." Vanessa's hands froze midair. She blinked. "What?" "He arrived less than 10 minutes ago, Ma. He's already in the executive boardroom. He asked for you." The line went dead. Vanessa's heart thudded. Mr. Alexander Johnson didn't just show up unannounced. He was a ghost in the building. Powerful, mysterious, and always away on international deals. Most employees had never even seen him in person, and now he wanted her. She stood, smoothed her blouse, checked her reflection, and reapplied her lipstick in practiced precision. Then she slipped into her red-bottom heels and grabbed her folder. Her heart beat faster, but her expression stayed fierce. She couldn't afford to show weakness. Not today. As she stepped out of her office, whispers followed her. "Why did he call her? Is it about what happened this morning? I heard the old woman was his mother." The last whisper hit her like a slap. She paused mid-stride. What did they just say? She turned sharply, but the whisperers melted away like shadows. Vanessa forced her legs to move. Down the long corridor, her heels clicked, but no longer with the same thunder. There was hesitation in the sound now. Doubt. Unease. She reached the tall oak doors of the executive boardroom. 2 senior aides stood by, hands clasped. "She's here," one of them said, then opened the door without a word. And there they were. At the head of the table sat Mr. Alexander, tall, composed, and deadly silent, and seated beside him, her shawl draped neatly across her shoulders, eyes calm and unblinking, was the cleaner from that morning. Vanessa's eyes widened. Her breath caught in her throat. "Mama?" Mr. Alexander said quietly, never looking at Vanessa. "Is this the woman?" Martha Johnson nodded once. Vanessa's folder fell to the floor. For the first time in her career, Vanessa had nothing to say. Vanessa stood frozen. The boardroom, cold and silent, suddenly felt like a courtroom. And she was on trial. Her legs began to tremble slightly. Her mind raced to find an explanation, an excuse, a diversion. Anything that could undo what had already happened. Mr. Alexander," she began, her voice cracking. I didn't know she was your... That's the problem." He cut in sharply, still not looking at her. His tone was quiet, yet carried more weight than a shout. "You didn't know." And so she became disposable. Vanessa's mouth parted, but her voice failed. Martha turned slowly in her chair, her aged but steady gaze locking with Vanessa's. Do you treat all the cleaners that way? Or did I earn something special this morning? Vanessa took a small step forward. Ma, I'm sorry. I lost my temper, Do you think my son became who he is by stepping on people? Martha's voice was low, almost gentle, yet every word struck like thunder. Vanessa's chest tightened. I made that mop water spill. On purpose, Martha continued. I wanted to see how the so-called stars of this company treated those they believed were beneath them. Alexander finally turned to Vanessa. His eyes were glassy steel. And now I know. Vanessa, I trusted you with people, with our work culture, with our image. And this morning, you kicked my mother. You insulted her. In public. Vanessa shook her head quickly. Sir, please. I wasn't myself. He stood. You were exactly yourself. He said, each word deliberate. That's what makes this so much worse. Tears welled up in Vanessa's eyes. She dropped to her knees. Please, sir, please. I've worked here for 8 years. I've poured my life into this company. And yet you forgot what this company stands for. Alexander said, We build. We don't destroy. Martha watched silently. Security! Mr. Alexander called. 2 guards stepped in. Vanessa's eyes widened. No, please. Don't do this. Don't embarrass me. Alexander looked away. Letting you stay after this would embarrass us all. She broke down. Please, I'll do anything. You already did. Martha replied softly. And the world saw. As she was escorted out of the boardroom, sobbing, shoes clicking awkwardly against the tile floor, Vanessa looked back one last time, but neither Alexander nor his mother returned the look. Her reign had ended, not with applause, but with silence. Vanessa sat on the edge of her bed in her apartment, the evening sun casting long shadows across the pale walls. Her room, once filled with designer bags, framed certificates, and perfume bottles, now looked cold, empty. She hadn't spoken since she got home. The driver had left her at the gate. No words, no comfort, just quiet shame. She had walked past the security guard without her usual strut. The neighbors had watched, confused, as the woman who once held her head high stumbled in like a ghost. Now her phone was ringing. It had rung 22 times that day. Messages poured in. What happened? Is it true? Vanessa, you need to explain yourself. She didn't reply. Instead, she stared at the framed photo of herself taken last year, standing tall beside Mr. Alexander at the company's anniversary gala. The caption had read, Pride of HR, Power Woman. Now she felt neither proud nor powerful. Tears rolled down her cheeks, silent and bitter. She thought about that moment, the mop, the splash, the old woman's eyes. Why had she done it? Was it pride? Was it entitlement? Or had cruelty simply become second nature? She tried to sleep, but sleep would not come. When her widowed mother, Mama Grace, returned from church that evening, she noticed something was wrong immediately. My daughter, she called. What is it? You haven't even touched your food. Vanessa didn't reply. Her mother sat beside her. You're scaring me. That's when Vanessa broke. She cried, loudly, bitterly, like a child. I ruined everything, Mama. She sobbed. Everything. Mama Grace wrapped her arms around her daughter. Tell me, what happened? And so, for the first time, Vanessa told the truth. Every detail, every word, every cruel act, every regret. Her mother listened. Then she sighed. My daughter, the higher you climb without humility, the harder the fall. But you're still alive. That means there's hope. Vanessa shook her head. They'll never take me back. Maybe not, Mama Grace said gently. But maybe this fall wasn't to break you. Maybe it's to build you right. That night, Vanessa lay in bed, staring at the ceiling. The silence was no longer empty. It was echoing with something else. A choice. The days that followed blurred together. Vanessa avoided the internet. But she didn't need to check it to know what was happening. Her disgrace had gone viral. Someone had recorded the incident on their phone. The clip was everywhere. Arrogant HR kicks elderly cleaner. Turns out to be boss mum. Power-drunk employee gets instant karma. Justice for Mama Martha. Even strangers were calling her name. With disgust, no company wanted to hire her. Her email inbox was filled with rejection letters. Her phone, once buzzing with high-level connections, became a graveyard of silence. She had become a pariah. Worse, her neighbors began to whisper, "That's her, the one who kicked the cleaner." She used to drive a company car. Now she's trekking like the rest of us. It was unbearable. Vanessa barely ate. She couldn't sleep. Her mother tried everything. Prayers, music, even her favorite yam porridge. But nothing worked. The light in her daughter's eyes had dimmed, until one night the silence snapped. Vanessa sat on the floor of the bathroom, trembling, a small vial in her hand. Her mind was numb. Her thoughts were loud. "You've lost everything. You'll never be respected again. No one will forgive you." Tears streamed down her face. She opened the vial, and just as she raised it to her lips, bang! Her mother burst through the door. "Vanessa!" she screamed. "What are you doing?" The vial dropped, shattered. Her mother fell to her knees, holding her tightly. "You will not die like this. I didn't raise you for shame to bury you. I raised you to fight, to rise again." Vanessa collapsed into her mother's arms, sobbing. "I'm so sorry, Mama. I thought if I left, it would end the pain." Her mother shook her head. "The pain is a sign you're still alive, and that means you still have a story to write." That night, Vanessa curled up on the couch beside her mother, and in the quiet, for the first time, she prayed. Not for her job, not for her pride, but for strength, for healing, for a second chance. It was a quiet Wednesday morning. Rain tapped gently on the windows as Mama Grace boiled water in the kitchen. The air smelled of ginger and lemongrass, a tea blend she always made when someone was healing. Vanessa sat on the floor, legs crossed, a notepad in front of her. For the first time since her fall from grace, she was writing. Not emails, not HR reports, but a letter to Martha Johnson. Her pen hovered for a long while before she finally began. "Dear Martha Johnson, there are no words that can undo the pain I caused you. I kicked you, insulted you, judged you, and worse, did it with pride. Not knowing who you were didn't excuse my actions. It only exposed who I was. And I hated that person. You didn't deserve to be treated that way. No one does. Since that day, I've lost everything. Position, respect, even the face I once saw in the mirror. But in that loss, something else emerged. Awareness, regret, a yearning to be better. You didn't have to forgive me, but I hope you will. Not because I deserve it, but because I want to rebuild my life from the ground up. Thank you for revealing the truth. I'm sorry for what I did. And I promise, if ever given the chance, I will walk differently in this world. Humbly, Vanessa Williams. She read it back to herself 3 times. Every word felt like it was stitched with pain, but also with something else. Growth. Her mother sealed it in a simple brown envelope and handed it to her. "Let's deliver this in person," she said. Vanessa hesitated. "Do you think she'll even want to see me?" Mama Grace looked her in the eye. "If you truly want redemption, you can't avoid the people you hurt. Healing isn't about comfort. It's about courage." That afternoon, they took a tricycle to the main office of Sterling Holdings. Vanessa didn't enter through the executive elevator this time. She came through the side gate, like a visitor. No badge, no pass. At the front desk, she asked to see Mrs. Martha Johnson. The receptionist blinked in shock. You want to see Mama?" "Yes," Vanessa said with no makeup, no titles, just truth. "Please, I just want 5 minutes." A call was made, and to Vanessa's surprise, the answer came back quickly. "She'll see you now." The waiting room outside the executive lounge was quiet. Vanessa sat alone on the gray leather couch, her palms clammy, the brown envelope resting on her lap like a verdict. Every second that passed stretched like hours. She stared at the walls, where portraits of Sterling Holdings milestones hung in gold frames. She had once believed her face might grace that wall someday. Now she just wanted forgiveness. The door opened. A soft voice called, "You may come in now." Vanessa stood slowly, legs trembling. Her heart pounded so loudly she could barely hear her own thoughts. She stepped into the lounge, and there she was, Martha Johnson, no longer in cleaner's uniform. Today she wore a simple but elegant Ankara wrapper, her grey hair tied neatly, her posture calm. She sat beside a large window with sunlight casting a gentle glow around her. She looked like something between royalty and memory. Vanessa stood at the door, frozen. "Sit," Martha said quietly, motioning to the chair across from her. Vanessa obeyed. The silence was thick. Martha stared at her for a long while, then said, "You look smaller." Vanessa's lips trembled. "I feel smaller." Martha gave a faint nod. "That's not always a bad thing." Vanessa reached into her bag and pulled out the envelope. She placed it on the table between them with both hands, like an offering. "I wrote this. For you. From my heart." Martha didn't pick it up. "I know words can't fix what I did," Vanessa continued. "But I had to try. I couldn't carry it anymore." Martha looked at her, eyes searching. "Why did you do it?" Vanessa blinked. "Do what?" "Kick me." Vanessa hesitated, then answered, voice cracking. "Because I thought you didn't matter. I thought you were just invisible. A mistake on my floor." Tears filled her eyes. "I became the kind of woman I used to hate. Ruthless, proud. I let the position blind me, and I forgot how to see people." Martha leaned back in her chair, her hands folded in her lap. "When my son built this company, I told him something. I said, 'Alex, you'll know the soul of your business not by the boardroom, but by how your staff treat the janitor.'" Vanessa nodded slowly. "And I failed that test." Martha finally reached out, picked up the letter, and held it gently. "Yes, you did." The words hung in the air. "Then," she looked Vanessa in the eyes. "But failure," she said, "isn't the end. It's the beginning, if you allow it." Vanessa gasped. "You're forgiving me," she whispered. "I'm choosing grace," Martha replied. "Because I've made mistakes too. Just not in front of cameras." Vanessa broke down, quiet sobs, shoulders shaking. She covered her face with both hands. Martha didn't rush to hug her. She simply allowed the silence to hold her. And that silence said, "You're not beyond redemption." 2 weeks passed. Vanessa spent her days volunteering at a local food bank her mother's church operated. She swept floors, served rice and beans, and folded plastic chairs after every service. Some people recognized her from the viral video. Others whispered. A few laughed. But she didn't flinch. She was learning to walk again, this time with her head bowed in humility. Then one morning, a message arrived. It wasn't a phone call. It wasn't an email. It was a handwritten note slipped under the door. "Report to the HR training office. Sterling Holdings, Monday 8 a.m. Ask for Ms. Abbasi. Do not wear heels." No signature. Vanessa's hands shook as she read it again. She had no idea what it meant. But something told her. This was it. The moment she didn't expect, but deeply hoped for. That Monday, Vanessa wore a plain gray blouse and black flats. No makeup, no jewelry. She carried only her ID and a simple notepad. She arrived early. The receptionist didn't roll her eyes this time. She offered a polite nod. "They're expecting you." Vanessa stepped into a side wing of the building she had never entered in her former role. The HR training office was smaller, warmer, and smelled faintly of books and lemon oil. On the wall was a poster. "Humility isn't weakness. It's wisdom in motion." She swallowed hard. Then the door opened. A petite woman with box braids and square glasses entered. "You must be Vanessa." "Yes, Ma." Vanessa softly. "I'm Ms. Abbasi." I run the Internal Growth and Culture Unit. We have a position open for an admin assistant in this department. Very different from what you're used to." Vanessa didn't blink. "I'll take it." Ms. Abbasi studied her, impressed. "No argument? No negotiation? I'm not here for power anymore." Vanessa replied. "I'm here to grow." "Good." Ms. Abbasi nodded. "Because here we don't lead with titles. We lead with example." Vanessa exhaled. For the first time in months, something like peace settled in her chest. By noon, she was handed a new ID card, a small desk, a shared office space, and a new label: Admin Assistant, Department of Culture and Values. Some staff passed by and stared. A few giggled. But Vanessa kept her head down and worked. She fetched files, took notes, printed agendas, smiled when the janitor brought her tea, and when no one was looking, she whispered to herself, "This time, I'm building something better." Weeks turned into months. Vanessa rose early every morning, took the bus to work, and arrived before most staff. She no longer wore designer blouses or loud perfumes. Her power suit had been replaced by simple cotton dresses and low-heeled shoes. She smiled at security guards, held doors for interns, and asked the cleaners how their children were doing. It confused people. "Is this the same Vanessa?" One staff member whispered. "She they do undercover humility now?" Another joked. But it wasn't a performance. It was transformation. In her new role as admin assistant in the Department of Culture and Values, Vanessa's job was simple. Take notes during training, help set up for team-building sessions, and coordinate staff feedback. But beneath those tasks, something deeper was happening. She was watching, listening, learning. One afternoon, Ms. Abbasi handed her a folder titled, "The Culture Audit Project." "We're rolling this out across the company," she said. "We're reviewing how staff treat each other, top to bottom. I want you to help design the internal survey." Vanessa blinked. "Me?" Ms. Abbasi nodded. "Yes, you. You've been on both sides of this coin. I want your insight." Vanessa felt a lump in her throat. She nodded, speechless. Over the next few days, she poured her heart into the survey draft. She asked questions like, "Do you feel seen at work? Has anyone ever made you feel less because of your role? If you were CEO for a day, what would you change?" When Ms. Abbasi read it, she smiled. "It's not just good. It's real." The project launched and responses poured in, hundreds of them. Some heartbreaking, some inspiring. And then came an invitation. Mr. Alexander wanted to meet the team behind the culture audit. Vanessa froze when she saw the email. "Should I go?" she asked Ms. Abbasi nervously. Her boss smiled. "You earned this." The day of the presentation, Vanessa stood at the far end of the conference table, holding a printed copy of the report. Mr. Alexander entered, flanked by aides and executives. He saw her and smiled faintly. "Ms. Vanessa," he said calmly, "I've read your work. Impressive." Vanessa bowed her head. "Thank you, sir." He flipped through the pages. "We're not just going to review this. We're going to implement it. And I want you to help lead the next phase." Vanessa's eyes widened. "You mean—" "Yes," he said. "Welcome back. Not to where you were, but to who you were meant to become." Vanessa blinked back tears. In silence, she whispered, "Thank you." But deep down, she knew this wasn't a reward. It was responsibility. The transformation of Sterling Holdings began quietly. Under the new Culture of Humanity initiative, policies were revised, trainings were restructured. Anonymous reporting channels were created for staff to share their experiences, good and bad. Respect was no longer a suggestion. It was a requirement. And behind it all, working quietly, yet purposefully, was Vanessa Williams. She still didn't have a private office. She still shared a desk. But now, executives consulted her, staff respected her, and her voice carried weight again. Not through fear, but through truth. Her greatest task was leading the Empathy Labs, a new workshop where staff members from different levels switched roles for a day. Janitors attended meetings. Drivers sat in HR chairs. Executives answered calls at the front desk. It was chaotic at first, and then magical. Laughter, tears, understanding. In one session, the notoriously impatient logistics supervisor spent 2 hours trying to fix a jammed photocopier and confessed, "I never knew they go through this every day." That same afternoon, Vanessa stepped into the elevator with Martha Johnson, now a frequent guest in the company, as an unofficial advisor. They stood in silence until the doors closed. "You're doing well," Martha said softly. Vanessa smiled. "I'm trying, every day." Martha turned to her. "I never told you this, but when I was a cleaner in my youth, I was once slapped by a bank teller who thought I was stealing. I cried for days, but I also made myself a promise." "What promise?" Vanessa asked. "That one day, I'd build or influence a space where no one was ever made to feel small again." Vanessa's eyes moistened. "And now," Martha continued, "you're helping fulfill that promise." Vanessa swallowed. "Thank you for not giving up on me. I didn't forgive you for who you were, my dear," Martha said, "but for who you could become." That evening, Vanessa sat at her desk, alone, reading one final survey response. "I used to be afraid to speak in meetings. Now my ideas are being implemented. Thank you for making this place feel human again." She closed the file. Her reflection in the glass window was different now. Softer, steadier, whole. And in that quiet moment, she whispered the words she once feared she'd never say. "I like who I'm becoming." It had been nearly a year since Vanessa's fall and rise. Sterling Holdings was no longer just a powerhouse of business success. It was now recognized as one of the most humane workplaces in West Africa, with articles praising its transformation, employee well-being programs, and inclusive culture. And at the center of it all stood Vanessa, no longer hidden in shame but walking in purpose. She had changed, and others had noticed. Among them was Dr. Philip, a gentle, quiet-spoken behavioral consultant from the company's mental health partner firm. He had first met Vanessa during a co-led training on leadership and emotional intelligence. He admired her resilience, her honesty, her humility. At first they spoke after sessions, then over coffee, then on Sunday morning strolls, and eventually it became impossible not to notice how much brighter Vanessa laughed when he was near, or how his eyes softened whenever she spoke. One Thursday evening, after a youth seminar where Vanessa had given a powerful talk titled "Grace After the Fall," Philip walked her home. They passed a small roadside suya stand, and Vanessa laughed as she pointed at the pepper level chart. "You? Medium. I dare you to go extra hot," he chuckled. "Challenge accepted." They ate under a streetlight, paper plates on laps, laughter between them. Then he turned serious. "You know, I've watched you rebuild your life with bare hands and a better heart," he said, voice low. "You didn't just recover. You transformed." Vanessa smiled, unsure what to say. "I've also watched myself fall for you, a little more each day." Her eyes widened. "Vanessa Williams," he continued, pulling out a small wooden box from his satchel. "I'm not here to fix you. I'm here to honor your journey and build a future with you. Will you marry me?" Vanessa's heart thudded in her chest. Her hands flew to her mouth. She couldn't believe what she was hearing. The girl who had once been shamed publicly, kicked out of an office in tears, was now being asked to share a life with someone who saw her, not for her past, but for her healing. Tears slipped down her cheeks. She whispered, "Yes, yes, I will." Philip slid the delicate silver ring onto her finger. It didn't glitter with diamonds, but it sparkled with meaning. And that night, under the Lagos stars, Grace wrote a new chapter in Vanessa's life. The sun shone softly over the grand atrium of Sterling Holdings, filtering through the skylight and warming the polished marble floors below. But today was no ordinary day. Banners lined the halls. 1 year of transformation, a celebration of culture and grace. Staff bustled with excitement. Guests filed in. Industry leaders, media reps, NGO partners. A small orchestra played gently in the background. Everything had been planned to perfection. But the most anticipated moment wasn't the speeches or the performances. It was the keynote speaker, Vanessa Williams, no longer an HR tyrant, no longer a disgraced ex-employee, now the director of staff well-being and organizational culture, and the woman behind the company's redemption. As she stepped up to the podium, dressed in a simple blue dress with her engagement ring glinting under the lights, a hush fell over the crowd. She took a breath, looked around the room, then down at the marble floor beneath her heels. It looked almost identical to the day she had kicked a cleaner across it. Almost. But everything had changed. She began. There was a time I believed respect was earned through status. That power came from fear. That appearances defined worth. She paused. Her voice was steady but raw. Then one day, I kicked a cleaner on this very floor, because I thought she didn't matter. The room went silent, not with judgment, but with reverence. I didn't know that woman was the mother of my boss. But that wasn't the real mistake. The real mistake was believing anyone deserved to be treated less, because of who they weren't. Cameras flashed, heads nodded. That floor, she pointed gently downward, didn't just reflect my image that day. It reflected my arrogance, my fall, and, eventually, my transformation. Martha Johnson, seated in the front row beside her son Alexander, dabbed at her eyes. Philip watched from the side, smiling, his arms crossed with quiet pride. Vanessa continued. Sterling Holdings gave me a second chance, but I only earned it when I stopped trying to save my reputation and started saving my heart. She turned slowly, addressing the room as one. Your role doesn't define your worth. Your paycheck doesn't measure your value. Kindness, humility, and humanity, those are the true currencies of power. The hall erupted in applause, a standing ovation. As Vanessa stepped down, Alexander took the stage briefly. She didn't just change herself, he said, gesturing to her. She changed us all. Later that evening, after the event had ended, Vanessa walked the now empty hallway of the office. The lights were dimmed. Only the soft echo of her flat shoes remained. She passed by a cleaner, new to the company, struggling to push a heavy cart. Vanessa paused. Let me help you with that, she said. The young cleaner blinked. Ma, you want to help? Vanessa smiled. No, I need to. And as she bent down, shoulder to shoulder with the cleaner, the marble floor once again reflected her image. But this time, it didn't reflect pride. It reflected grace. The end. If this story touched you, don't forget to subscribe, comment, and share, not just to support the channel, but to carry its message forward. And always remember, kindness is never beneath you. Stay with us for more stories that heal hearts, stir souls, and inspire transformation.